Cooking a roast the old-fashioned way. I'm going to cook this roast in a vintage pan. Right now I got the onions cooking, kind of getting them braised up, flavoring up that oil. This is an old vintage roasting pan. Let's see if I can bring back the taste of the old days. Alright, I've taken the onions out, getting ready to sear the meat. Oh, wow. I'm going to sear both sides here for just about probably 20-30 seconds. And then we'll move on to the next step of getting the veggies in and getting it ready to go. Go into the oven. Oh, it smells good too so far. Okay, the roast has been seared. I've turned the heat off. I've got the oven preheating. Basically all I've done to this roast so far is I've put Lea & Perrins Worcestershire sauce, the thick sauce on it as a marinade, then salted, peppered it, and then I've seared it, and that's it. Now I'm going to clean up a little bit and go to the next step. Okay, here's the rest of my ingredients. These are the onions that I braised in the olive oil. Those are some of the onions that I didn't cook. I'm going to put them on with the potatoes and the carrots, and I've got about 2 cups of water here that I add to give the roast some juice. I'll go ahead and pour that in here now. There we go. I don't want to pour it on top of the roast because it might soak off some of the marinade that's still on there and the pepper, but we'll pepper it again before we stick it in the oven. Okay, as you can see, I'm adding the fresh onions in there that I haven't cooked. I'm kind of putting them around the edges in the water, just like this. Okay, the cooked onions, they still have oil on them from when I braised them, and I add those back on top of the roast because some of that olive oil will go back into the meat and help keep it moist. Plus it adds a lot of flavor to the roast. I'll just sit there and I'll put all those back on there. I add the sliced potatoes. Just kind of throw them in there at random. Really doesn't make a difference. I do put a few on top, but towards the end. Just kind of put them down there in the water. Let's put the rest in the water. There we go. Okay, I've added the carrots. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this ground pepper, and I'm going to pepper it. I'm going to take some sea salt and just lightly cover the top of all the veggies with this salt and this pepper to give it some seasoning, and it'll also help the gravy once I get ready to make the gravy. And then I'm going to put a little bit of liquid smoke and a little more Lea & Perrins on it, and then stick it in the oven. Okay, I just got through adding a little bit of liquid smoke, just probably about, probably barely a teaspoon, just shaking in there, in little drops. Then I used some Lea & Perrins with Worcestershire sauce just to finish it off. Covered all the vegetables with it pretty good, soaked it down pretty good. Now all we got to do is put it in the oven. So anyway, this is an old vintage roasting pan. I would venture to say it was probably made back in the 1950s. It's real light, made out of aluminum. I've used it a few. I use it for roasts, but it hadn't been used in years up until I got hold of it again. Anyway, let's stick this in the oven. Okay, it's in the oven. What I'm going to do is it's set at 325 right now. I'm going to run it at 325 degrees for about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to turn the temperature down to about 275. and going to let it cook for 2.5 hours. That's a slow cook roast, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, the 30-minute time's passed. We're going to turn our temperature down now. Take it down to 275. And then set the clock for, I'm going to have a different clock because this one will not go up to 2 hours. Okay, we just set the clock on our oven for 2.5 hours. So, there she is in the oven cooking. Cooking a roast the old-fashioned way in an old-fashioned pan. Gonna make some old-fashioned gravy with some rolls. It's gonna be delicious. Alright, the roast is now ready. We've let it cook for 2.5 hours. We're going to get it out of the oven and start the next part of the process. Alright, we got it out. Let's see what we got here. Oh, yes sirree. That's looking good. What we got to do now is get all the vegetables out, get the roast out, put it in a casserole dish, get everything separated. Then I got to work on getting the gravy ready to go here. So let me get some of that stuff done off camera. Okay, I've separated all the veggies and the meat, put the meat in a casserole dish. Here's the juices, the drippings from the gravy. As you can see, there's a little bit of oil on top. Of course, it's not too bad. Most of that's olive oil. Some of that's oil from the meat itself. We're going to use one of these little strainers to get most of the oil out, and then we're going to pour it into this pan here and start to make our gravy. Okay, we've now separated the oil. There's the oil that we separated out of the drippings. There's very little oil left in there now, floating on the surface. As you can see, you got a little bit down there at the bottom of gravy. I'll try to get some more of that out, but for the most part, this is going to be the gravy. You can see. So we'll pour these 2 cups of gravy back into this over here, and then we'll start. Okay, we have all the drippings in this pan to make the gravy. We've separated the vegetables. They're over here. I've got my salt, my pepper, and here is some flour that I will be using to make the gravy. What I like to do is I like to grab a couple of these carrots like that. And what I'll do is I'll mash them up, then I'll add them to the gravy, and it gives the gravy some flavor and some texture. And I love the taste of these carrots in the gravy. It's delicious. So I'll take that pulp that I've just made and I'll put that in the juices right now. I've added the carrots in here. I'm going to stir this all up. This is really, I'm going to put the heat to it here in just a second and we'll get it going. Now I've got to add the flour. I'll just set that about right there for now. Get that going. So, alright. Couldn't do it on camera because I had to use 2 hands, but I just added a little bit of this sifted flour into this as it was kind of circulating around in there. It was like this, so I'm going to stir that in. And this is heating up right now, so it should be coming to a boil here in just a few minutes. And then we'll continue. It's just been a minute or two. It's still heating up. I added a little more flour, and now I'm going to add some salt. And I usually add a little bit of salt to it. You guys may not want to add this much, but that's about like all I need there. Then I'll add some more pepper to it. Not a whole lot. And I'll stir that up while it's heating up. Okay. Now the temperature is about up where it needs to be, where you start stirring it. And just keep it moving. And this is the tricky part. This is where making gravy is really hard to do. You have to get it to the right texture and the right taste. And from this point on out, it's really just touch and go. It's really subjective. There's no set way to do it. You've just got to watch it and know. I will tell you this: as it gets thicker and you rake your spatula across the bottom of the pan like this, when you start being able to see the bottom of the pan right behind the spatula, right now you can't do that because it's too liquid. It's still just filling in immediately. When it gets thick, you'll actually be able to see the bottom of the pan. And right now that's not happening. It's still too thin. Okay, the gravy's still cooking down. I've got the rolls here, just a real easy, quick thing on the rolls. The oven's preheating to 450. I'm just going to take some of this melted butter. I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to brush it on top of these rolls like this. And just slather it on there really good and thick. Just make sure you get them coated really good. And you're going to put them in the oven at 450 for about anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes, just depending on your cooking temperature and how your oven cooks. Everybody's oven cooks a little different. Mine's cooks just a tad warmer than most people's ovens do. But anyway, so those are ready to go. They're buttered down. And all I gotta do now is wait for the oven to tell me it's ready. Okay, this gravy is getting to a texture now where when I put my spatula in there and run across the bottom, it's getting thick. You can kind of see where it's starting to. You almost can see the bare floor of the pan there. Okay, the gravy's starting to get a little thicker now. I may need to add just a little bit more flour to it. Just almost, it's still too liquidy. So we'll keep cooking it down. Okay. This gravy is ready. As you can see, when I scrape across, you can see the bottom of the pan really good. This gravy's thick enough. I've already turned the heat down on it, and I'm fixing to take it out and pour it in a bowl right here. Okay, I've poured it out, and there it is. Real nice gravy. Set that over here on the table. Okay. You can see it's got pieces of carrot in it. It's a real good looking gravy. Let's take a sip of it and see what it tastes like. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's awesome. The rolls are ready. They're nice and brown. Woo! That's hot. Let's get them rascals out. Yes, sirree. And my oven cooks real fast. And so, yeah, they're a little more brown than I want them to be, but they'll work. Ah, here we go, folks. Fresh gravy on the rolls. Slather it on there. A little bit on my meat. Yeah. There you go, folks. Roast beef, the old-fashioned way. Got some little cherry tomatoes to top it off as well. big ass glass of iced tea. Bon appetit, y'all.